What happened in those few seconds shocked North Charleston. A young female officer was brutally beaten by a mob. But what happened next may have been even bigger.
Attacks on law enforcement are unacceptable, and those responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
North Charleston police have now declared war on criminals, and some of the plans they're putting in place are unlike anything the city has seen in years. Let me break it down. A party 10 years in the making. For about 10 years, this same street threw the same party, and nothing ever went wrong. It happened in the Chicora Cherokee community of North Charleston, South Carolina, right by Chicora Community Park on Calvert Street. It was an annual permitted block party that had been held in that same spot for roughly a decade with no major trouble. It wasn't the city's giant 4th of July festival down at Riverfront Park. This was smaller. This was the neighborhood's own thing. Kids ran around, grills smoked, music played. And the police knew about it. They didn't stumble onto it by accident. Earlier that same day, police leadership sat down with the event organizers to plan out traffic and parking, and to make sure emergency vehicles could get in if anything went wrong.
In advance of the holiday, earlier that day, police leadership met with the event organizers to discuss the event, including traffic, parking plans, to ensure emergency vehicles could safely access the area if needed.
When officers first showed up, it was for something small. People had drifted out into the street. So the police found the person who pulled the permit and asked them to move the crowd back. No fight, no drama.
Our officers went out there and made contact with the permitted person at first, and it was fine.
At around 8:30 that night, officers started getting calls about gunfire and about people shooting fireworks straight at passing cars.
At approximately 8:30 p.m., officers began receiving reports of gunfire and individuals firing fireworks toward passing vehicles.
This wasn't a rumor. When police rolled back in, the people who were actually there told them the same thing.
Officers responded immediately and were informed by attendees that several people had begun discharging firearms.
Here's the part that stings. The police weren't blind to this. They already had intelligence that a group of kids planned to run around that night having fights with Roman candles and fireworks. They just didn't know it would land on this block at this party at this hour.
We had prior intelligence that a bunch of kids, a bunch of juveniles were going to be running around, having these fights with these, Roman candles, these fireworks. And we just didn't know that they were going to be in that area at that time.
So the crowd that had been fine, it didn't stay that size. Between the first time police came and the second time, it swelled fast.
We're estimating about 400 people.
And these weren't little pops you could brush off as fireworks. The chief said officers can tell the difference, and the shots were still cracking off even after he got there, long after that first call came in.
Multiple. I was hearing gunshots and I was there way after the fact. They were still going off.
They tried the calm way first. Officers made repeated public announcements that the event was over and told everyone to leave safely, trying to de-escalate before anything got worse.
Officers made repeated public announcements advising that the event had ended and directing everyone to leave the area safely in an attempt to de-escalate the situation.
It didn't take.
Despite those efforts, multiple fights broke out and additional gunshots were fired.
Fights everywhere, more shots, and now the officers had a choice to make, the kind of choice you can't take back. They couldn't fix this from inside their cars anymore, so they opened the doors and walked into it.
Officers exited their patrol vehicles to intervene, separate the individuals involved in the fights, and work to restore order and protect the public.
That single decision to step out on foot into a crowd of hundreds is the moment everything turned, because one of those officers was a young woman. And in a few seconds, she was going to be on the ground, alone, with the whole crowd closing in. One little snippet. The video is only a few seconds long. That's all it takes. A cell phone clip spread across the country showing a young female North Charleston officer down on the grass near the train tracks, swarmed by a group of teenagers. She's outnumbered. She can't get up. The group kicks her, hits her, and pulls at her while she's on the ground, and at least one of them fires a Roman candle firework straight into the middle of the attack. And the crowd around her, most of them just filmed it, phones up, not one hand reaching down to help. Then backup arrived. Other officers pushed in, deployed tasers, and started pulling attackers off to get the situation back under control. By the next afternoon, the police chief stood in front of the cameras and made one thing very clear right away. What you saw was real, but what you saw was tiny.
What you got on that social media, you're looking at one little snippet of one little video. We were out there for an extended period of time, and there was a lot of contact that was made.
One little snippet, one little angle. He kept coming back to that because the phone in the crowd only caught a sliver of a much longer, much uglier night. So who are these people? The chief's read was blunt. This wasn't the block party itself gone bad. It was a group that slipped in and hijacked it.
I think they just took advantage of that block party, intermingled, and started being unruly.
They melted into a friendly neighborhood cookout, and then they set it on fire. And then he laid out what the phones didn't show.
During the response, multiple firearms and a makeshift spear were recovered.
A spear, a homemade spear, at a block party. And that wasn't even the worst of the hardware.
Also, we recovered 4 firearms, 2 of which were automatic, okay? So that just shows that this wasn't just, us saying that there was gunfire there.
This lined up with what officers said from the start about gunfire at the scene, though police stressed that no one was actually struck by the shooting.
We recovered 4 weapons, 4 guns. So, very hectic situation.
And it wasn't just the woman in the video who got hurt. Multiple officers were assaulted that night, and 2 female officers came away with minor injuries.
Multiple officers were physically assaulted, with 2 female officers sustaining minor injuries.
But here's what he wanted people to take away most. His officers got swarmed, got hit, got knocked down, and they still held the line the right way.
And I want to praise my officers for the restraint that they showed in that video and outside of that video, okay?
He said they get watched harder than anyone when kids are involved.
When we're dealing with juveniles, we get judged at a very high level.
So they did it by the book. Tackled and hit, they still went straight to cuffs and tasers, nothing extra. And then, almost like a flex, the chief dropped the update nobody expected.
The 2 female officers that were injured are fine. They're working. The young officer that's in the video, she's back working today.
Back at works the very next day, the woman the whole internet watched get beaten on the ground had already clocked back in.
Kind of gives you a little sense of that North Charleston police toughness.
Then came the warning, the part that told you this story was far from over. If you thought that short clip was the whole case, the chief said, wait until the body cams get reviewed.
We have a ton of body-worn camera footage that we have to go to. More arrests will be made as we go through our body camera footage.
And there was a catch buried in it, one the public wasn't going to like.
No, probably not, no.
That was his answer when a reporter asked if that fuller bodycam footage would ever be released to the public. Probably not. So the department was holding the fuller story, promising more names and pointing to video the rest of us may never see, which raised the real question everyone was already shouting online. Now what happens to the people who did this? The war that wasn't. Here's the twist the headline won't tell you. Nobody in that police department ever declared war on anyone. Search the statements, search the press conference. The dramatic war on criminals line came from social media and viral captions, not from any official at the North Charleston Police Department. What the department actually did was quieter and in a way heavier. They promised prosecution all the way.
Attacks on law enforcement are unacceptable, and those responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The safety of our residents and visitors remains our highest priority.
And the numbers started small. 4 people were arrested the first day, 3 of them juveniles and 1 adult, with at least 1 or 2 of those arrests for assaulting an officer.
4 arrests were made yesterday, 3 juveniles and 1 adult. I know at least 1 or 2 of those arrests were for assaulting an officer.
Then the state's top lawyer stepped in. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson posted online that there is no place in South Carolina for mob violence or attacks on law enforcement, and that the state would not tolerate mob rule. It was loud, it was law and order, and it fit the mood online where people were demanding adult charges and asking where the parents were. But if you actually listen to the chief, the war wasn't with the neighborhood. The war was with a problem he admitted he hadn't cracked yet.
I am looking for any way possible to try to solve this issue of unruly juveniles. It's very complex and probably the most difficult thing that I've had to deal with in my policing career.
The most difficult thing in his whole career. This is a man with about 30 years on the job saying that. And then he did something you almost never hear a chief do in the middle of a scandal. He asked for help.
But we need some help, we really do. We need some help. We need some help from the community.
He wasn't just talking. The department had already changed its policy so that a higher-ranking officer, a corporal, sergeant, or lieutenant, now has to respond to certain juvenile calls to lower the temperature. And he said he was meeting with community leaders and mentorship groups to try to get ahead of it. Because this wasn't some knee-jerk reaction to one bad night on camera. He'd been quietly rebuilding how his officers handle kids since almost the day he took over. And North Charleston wasn't even alone that night. The same holiday, down at Coligny Beach on Hilton Head Island, a fight between two groups ended in gunfire.
4 people have now been arrested after a shooting. It happened at the Colony Beach that is over on Hilton Head Island during 4th of July celebrations. 7 people suffered what investigators say are non-life-threatening injuries, but gunshot wounds were involved and those folks were taken to area hospitals. Deputies quickly identified and detained those involved, arresting 4 suspects ranging in ages from 17 to 18. Multiple firearms were also recovered.
Same weekend, same state, same age group, same guns, a pattern, not a fluke. So no, nobody declared war. What they declared was that they're stretched thin, that they need the community, and that they're going to chase every name on those body cams. Police are asking anyone with photos or video to send tips through the Crime Watch app as the investigation continues. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.